Welcome back to Internal Affairs, a police podcast here with your host, Marlon Marrache, a.k.a. the IA guy. This is the last, we're here at the studio, right? This is December 30th. It's going to be the last one for 2024, and I got to tell you, man, it's been quite a ride having just blessed, just happy to know that I can use this platform to get the message out, and that's my way to contributing, considering I've been retired for I'm going to go on my third year, so happy about that. Okay, normally I say it's going to be on and cracking and popping with this incident, this caper, but there is a video out there that's going viral. This incident that happened at Marcy Correctional Facility on December 9, 2024 in the wonderful state of New York in Oneida County. Let's call it what it is. It's a beating. You got a handcuffed suspect. And let me just kind of, I will start off by saying that I'm very critical considering I worked in internal affairs, but I've also defended cops on the other side of the table. As you can see, we break down officer-involved shootings. We break down tactics. We give our opinions about when we do these traffic stops. And a lot of the incidents that we've been breaking down, cops have really shown their patience when these First Amendment auditors come and just really hammer these cops to try to get them to react. And I'd be the first one to tell you, you know what? Even if there was an IA, these cops are completely exonerated. They did the right thing. Kudos, great job. But sometimes there are incidents like this one that really calls into question, why do we do the things that we do? And unfortunately, it gives such a bad name, and it tarnishes the badge, and it's a major scar on law enforcement. So here it is. This video, I'm going to break it down in two parts. The first part is when Mr. Robert Brooks was being brought in, what you would consider to be hogtied, right? He's got the hobble, and he's being brought in to Marcy's Correctional Facility into a medical examination room. Take a look. Okay. Now, after watching all this, I'd be the first one to tell you, in my mind, what matters the most to me is everybody that's in that room. So, because of my experience, I think of duty to intervene, duty to intercede, or duty to interfere, right? And there was none. Would you agree?
I would agree 100% because everyone in that room, whether they were a corrections officer or a supervisor, has a duty to intervene to not only to not utilize excessive force, but also intervene if excessive force is being used.
Yeah, and you know what? Here in the state of California, under Senate Bill 2, and there's also another Senate Bill 26, it kind of differentiates a little bit, but it talks about a duty to intervene, where if you arrive at a scene of a critical incident or of an incident that's escalating to, a major use of force, you have a duty to intervene if you believe that the officer is using excessive force. And of course, when we teach this in Savage Training Group, in the internal affairs course and the OIS course, we always ask the audience, well, what do you consider to be excessive? Well, you know what? Watch this video, and this is exactly what excessive is. Let me ask you this, Daniel. We do know that criminal filings are pending. Are we taking really into consideration the fact that it is an in custody death of these officers?
Absolutely. So whether the fact that this was an in custody death, that's going to be investigated on the administrative side, but also on the criminal side. And I would expect there to be a pretty extensive criminal investigation, not only when it comes to the state of New York, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were also federal civil rights charges investigated as well.
Right. Daniel, let me ask you this from experience, because I do know that you've investigated on behalf of the department, which is normally the entity of Professional Standards Bureau, call it Force Investigation Division, Internal Affairs, what have you. This is a critical incident. So my question to you is, when we're doing these interviews, administrative that is, obviously they're compelled and they're telling us what happened, right? Frame by frame, second by second, all these facts. Do we also ask about a duty to intervene? Are we asking questions, those hard questions, those difficult questions that you need to ask each and every one of those correctional officers? Like, okay, from your angle, when you were observing your colleague administering these strikes in the groin area, what is it that you were thinking? Thoughts on that? And have you ever experienced something like that?
That's a great point because not only are competent investigators going to be asking questions specifically about what each employee did, but they're also going to be asking questions about what they didn't do. So just like you said, they're going to be watching body camera footage. They're going to be showing it to the officer during that interview, and they're going to say, okay, at this point you were standing here. This is what you saw. And they're going to be asking, why didn't the officer intervene at any point? And all those questions should be asked to every single officer for the entire video.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this what we call in our culture clean and dirty team. Is that what you guys have? What you call it out there as well, where you have investigators investigating the criminal portion of a critical incident, then you have an administrative portion of investigators investigating, and the crim investigator has to turn over all evidence to the admin, but the admin cannot share any of these statements or any of these interviews or any evidence with the criminal portion. Did I explain
That's
that right?
you explain that right, and for a lot of people, that's really hard to understand. But the way you have to think about it, so if you're an employee for in this case, the state of New York, if you're an employee for the state of New York, so they're going to do an internal affairs investigation. As part of your employment, you have to answer questions to whatever they want to cooperate with the internal affairs investigation. You don't have a choice, you have to cooperate. But then you have people, other officers who are investigating any criminal aspects. Now, just because you're an employee of New York State or any other government doesn't mean you lose your constitutional rights.
Correct.
So just because you have to cooperate with the administrative portion, you still have the constitutional rights where you do not have to cooperate with the criminal portion if you don't want to.
Yeah, and you know what? I was thinking about this also is that, gosh, and I hate to be, I got to put my adjudicator hat on, and it's shitty as it sounds, because you and I will agree, you know what, I'll defend a cop any day. I really would. Even when I worked internal affairs, not everything seems like it is on TV or what you hear or those opinions. Oh my God, cops are, corruption. Granted, look, I totally understand. It is incidents like this that gives us a bad name. But let's kind of pull the, let's kind of take a step back, if you will, and understand that this is a very small fraction of in this case, correctional officers that conduct themselves that way. I just don't understand what is it they're trying to accomplish. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you can chime in on this. At some point, there was like a white cloth that's being the correctional officer's trying to stick it into his mouth, and one trying to like pin him up and down and grab him. It seems as though that there is a somewhat of a inducement, if you will. Maybe he induced some drugs and they're trying to get him out. I don't know.
So that's exactly what it looked like to me. It'll be really interesting to say, when these officers go on record for the administrative interview, it'll be really interesting to see what they say. And not only am I interested in what the corrections officers have to say, but one of the individuals in the room was a nurse. So because we don't have any audio, it's difficult to know, well, it's impossible to know what that conversation was. But it's to me, it looks like just what you said, that it looks like maybe he swallowed something and they were, at least at some portion of it, doing something to try to get that out of him.
Yeah. And well, let's talk about the audio only. We do have an understanding that body worn video was not activated.
We do know that body worn video wasn't activated, and for people who aren't in this job, and honestly, for people who are in this job and just may not know this function of how body cameras work, people have the same reasonable question. They'll say, Daniel, what do you mean that the body cameras weren't activated? We're watching the body camera footage, and that's not an unreasonable question. So I think it's important that we answer it.
Yeah, and my understanding is that Axon has, you and I discussed this video recall function, if you will, that allows agencies to pretty much generate the video up to, I want to say it was up to 80 hours or 70-something hours. Don't quote me on that, but there is Axon that got involved. So my thinking is, and again, we're speculating here because we don't know much of the facts, but Mr. Robert Brooks was pronounced dead the next day on December 10th. And so that becomes a critical incident. And of course, okay, it was in our custody, so we need to investigate this. And then at some point they determined that, body worn videos weren't on. If you're in the audience out there and you're familiar with this particular correctional facility, or just in the state of New York, correctional facility organizations, my thinking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that body worn video needs to be activated. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that body worn cameras have to be activated. And, one of the things about this is that, so the only thing that I can think of, and I'm really curious to see what some of the interviews from the officers say, is because, so this happened in a medical exam room. So is there some type of policy that they have where maybe there are, and I have seen some body camera policies that say that, if there's a medical examination going on, they don't want police officers to record that. So essentially that would be a violation of policy. I don't know what the policy is here, but I have seen that before.
Right. So there might be an expectation of privacy, HIPAA laws and stuff like that. And it just brings me to say that one of those hard questions in that administrative compelled interview is, and let's just go with, there is a policy that let's just say your body worn video says that it needs to be activated. Okay, well, any particular reason why you decided not to activate your body worn video? Is it because you knew, and this is a tough question, that your colleagues were going to beat the crap out of them to take out this self-induced drug-related paraphernalia, if you will, whatever it was? Could that be the case? I don't know. And those are tough questions. But I will say this, and maybe you can agree with me or not, but it's very deceitful. It seems like you're hiding these particular type of incidents, you know, cutting corners, if you will, and I couldn't agree with you more in terms of categorical uses of forces of these critical incidents, is that the department is going to scrutinize you for not so much of what you did, it's the things that you didn't do, like in this case. And so to me, the fact that you violated policy, again, we're assuming here that you didn't activate your body worn video because of the sequence of events that follow thereafter, I terminate you just on that. I mean, granted, it's unbecoming conduct. I get that. But let's talk about, and I guess I'm trying to get to a conspiracy, if you will. Hey, is this something that happens? And again, it might be culture. What do you think? That's what I'm thinking. That's what it is.
I think that's what it is too. And just even if there is some type of a policy that says that, you know, you're not supposed to use your body cam to record if you're in like a medical office or something like that, there's always going to be a caveat that if there's a use of force, then you have to turn it on at that point. So the reason why the officers didn't turn on their body cameras, that's going to be so essential for this investigation, because that's really going to show the intent of the officers. And just like you said, they seemed really comfortable in what they were doing. So the idea that this is the only time that this has happened, I don't think that's a reasonable opinion. And you know what? I think here's what my guess is going to happen. Not only internal affairs, but also the state of New York. They're going to go back and look, hey, how many other people have we had complain about this kind of thing happening in that medical room? And again, if Mr. Brooks didn't die, what kind of investigation would this case have? And that's the kind of thing that is going to happen in this case. It's going to be a full-blown thing, a wide-blown thing. And that's why my guess is that the Department of Justice might even get involved.
Yeah, no, you're spot on those remarks. It almost makes me wonder that if Mr. Brooks had not passed away, maybe, well, number one, it wouldn't be a critical incident. Number two, since the cameras weren't on, and maybe that is policy, this happens all the time. You know,
and it could, just like you talked about the video recall. So it's, if the cameras are on but not recording, essentially the video recall inside these Axon cameras is held for 18 hours.
yes.
So anything that the camera sees for 18 hours, you know, the admin can essentially work with Axon, go back and retrieve that video. But after 18 hours, it's gone. So again, think about a situation where, you know, Mr. Brooks doesn't pass away. He complains the next day. I mean, by the time this hits anyone's desk of anyone important, 18 hours is gone. No video is going to be captured. So like you said, intent. Did these guys know that?
Yeah.
Is this part of their normal practice?
Yeah, no, totally. And that's super important. Hey, man, thanks for sharing all that. Any parting words that you can think of about this incident? Because I really want to hone in and emphasize that you and I and other colleagues of ours are constantly putting out a lot of incidents that educates the public about what officers do in certain situations. But we are the first ones to call out when something really awful, horrible, like this incident actually happens. Yeah, man, you got to go. And I'm not talking about the ones who actually, I suppose, committed the alleged crime, right? Because you got a battery here. You might even have a aggravated battery. Who knows? You might even get filed with criminal negligence in the state of New York. However, those are criminal actions by certain COs. What bothers me even more is the other people in the room, because they have to go and probably not even be a law enforcement officer in your career. That's just my opinion. I stick to that. Duty to intervene is a good thing. The days of police culture where, hey, you know what, this is what we're going to do, you know, we back each other up, those days are long gone, man. And it's part of full transparency, and here you have it. Any parting words?
Yeah, the last thing I want to say about this case circles back to what you said earlier about a case like this tarnishing the badge, because it does. But the way that we fight against that is people like you and I in shows like this who are pro-police call it out and really don't allow stuff like this to go on without saying how awful it is. That's how we fight against it.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Hey, man, stick around. We're going to talk about another incident that I'd definitely love to get your opinion about. But on that note, thank you for everything, bro. Hey, man, Happy New Year in 2025. You got to come to the studio, man. You got to come here.
Absolutely. I'd love to, sir. Thanks.
Okay, Diano. Hey, like always, please be safe out there and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.